Hello, my friends. Today I would like to share with you a letter, and this is a letter that I wrote to a dear friend of mine who is currently in prison, and he's been there for over 22 years. Um, he is a beautiful human being, beautiful heart and soul, who, when he was 18, got into a drunken knife fight and killed somebody. Um, for over the past 15 years, he's had an impeccable record over there, being completely peaceful, um, guiding education for other inmates, and really just like doing work on himself and learning how to live and learning how to live a life and still grow and find beauty within a place that can be so dim, and so many souls die. Um, yeah, he gave me a bracelet when I visited him, and I carry his bracelet with me everywhere I go. Um, Lawyers that a friend of mine, his lover, also the one who introduced us, has spoken to, says that he, because of his record um, and the contents surrounding the actual fight, coming from such an abusive household and whatnot, he does qualify for somebody who can be free. Um, and it essentially just takes the right push, and part of that push is um, him choosing to be free, him taking the steps of opening that door and filing for a review. And the lawyers that we've spoken to say that if he does file for a review, he's in. Um, so yeah, I'm rooting for it, and I'm just sending him this letter as a way to say, hey, I love you, and share a little bit about who I am, because we've only really met once. I know that I just love him as a human being, but we don't really know a whole lot about each other. So yeah, this is just a little bit of the story of the journey and where I am. So without further ado, dear brother, I write to you upon day 99 of a 100-day journey assembling a spacecraft. I'm reprogramming my mind, rewiring the circuitry of my psyche to operate within a new paradigm of conscious awareness. To share with you the presence of my recent attire, I'll first share in contrasting articulation the prehistory, BC, before the self-creation. My waking into the world of magic was abrupt, to say the least. For all intensive purposes, I was fairly normal growing up. When I turned 18, I moved from Chicago to California to go to school, and nestled in the dormant volcanoes and cradling the Central Pacific coast, my psyche, everything I'd known to be myself in the ways of the working world, began unraveling themselves around me. This was the same age a few of my family members had entered their own psychotic breaks, diagnosed with a whole slew of mental illnesses, from bipolar to depression to, in my eye, the scariest, at the time, schizophrenia, which, amidst the shift, became then the most attractive. Slowly at first, I felt myself not as myself. I began noticing things about how I'd been presenting myself to the world that were entirely fake, false. Somewhere along the way, I developed into a compulsive liar. In everyday interactions with people, I would lie continually, speaking stories out of my ass that had never happened from the times that never were. I would lie every day, so subtly and often so profoundly for no reason. And the strangest thing about it, I had absolutely no idea I was doing it. When I did become aware of it, I stopped, rather than living with the atrocity of continuing, and soon the dominoes began to fall. One by one, all around me, the comfortability of a false paradigm, a protective layer to reality, relieved itself from my body. Acid rains of falsity fell from my reflection as tears carrying layers of a leper's skin. It was a nauseating process. It was silent depression, a poison slowly seeping into the world around me, withdrawing all passion from things I'd done, things I'd once thought myself to love. I felt sure to be contracting the same spiraling disease sentenced to other members of my family. And then I found dance. One day changed my life through the wondrous eyes of LSD, as Lucy as she spoke to me. I was at a music festival, Coachella, moving to the deep experimental bass music at the Do-Lab stage, when I realized I was dancing, but not actually dancing. There was something inside of me that wanted to move, but I hadn't given it permission to. I felt it as a knot in my body, a dam of damnation withholding the ocean. I heard the words of the walls speak. What would happen if they would see? I realized I was withholding something inside of me from expression out of a fear of how it would be perceived. And once I saw this logical fallacy, I released it, exploding the cage in my hand in one fluid, energetic release. And here, for the first time, I gave it permission to release and tune me. All surrounding me are encircling walls of tsunami, rushing to greet and capsize the city of my psyche in a surge of self I'd never seen. I receive the tide and sacrifice to the city of the previous paradigm. I used to go by Johnny. Here is where he died. As simple as a decision, I let go of any notion of how I should move and allow myself to move freely. A physical translation of the audio ejaculation. So fluid are the walls, are the waters of divinatory. So fluid are the waters of a divinatory aneurysm. My body leapt from itself as a schizophrenic eruption of sound and motion. Unbound, rhythmless form fled from my body like an earthquake caused from a Tourette's seizure of a prehistoric megalodon in the Marina Trench flooding Noah's Earth. Here, where all that was no longer, and the previous idea of all that couldn't be, the laws of physical reality, were swept from the table, turning over and over. The system glitched. We'd hacked it. Upon the temporal plane, this event happened through a series of events, all taking place at different times, quite closely intertwined, so we could give the psyche time to internalize the update. But from the language of God speak, it all took place in a single breath, one moment, one button, one flip switch. Ignition. I look out into the infinite abyss, hovering in the space beneath the stars. From nothing, ripples cast themselves in fluctuations of peak and swell, ones and zeros. From nothing, a teardrop falls in water, casting a ripple cascading through empty shadows. From nothing, ripples are a spiral of infinite cosmic hands emanating from the well I dip my pen. The infinity inscribed in the scriptures of ancient future societies and all its emanations reaches out and into me, so tenderly and sensually caressing my face before wrapping around my body and pulling me into the void of ever beyond eternity. From nothing, I am born into everything, where here we see all our lives intertwining, weaving together as cosmic dancing strands, composing and recomposing the fabric of eternity. In this space, this state, I see the infinity within me, the infinity within my eye, and all my many lives of stills in the moving image of water. Arraying in front of me is the well of all remembering. All these scenes who speak, imprisoning perceptions of the eye who see, the voice who breathes, the word assimilating reality, a mage's matrix and the master key to mastery, where in this state I am the genie, dream maker, world painter, and I come to you, my sweet, as you've called to me, to weave the dream of which you seek, to breathe one scene of birthing being, compose a new reality for the singular physicality. There is no time for the token to think, so simply do, assembling sigil in me and cast it through. Please, place your dream here. That was strange. I suppose something wanted to speak to you. Anywho, back to the story. When I was a young warthog, when he was a young warthog. When I opened the door to dance, I opened the door to everything. I was swallowed by the tsunami of divinity's imagination, and reality flipped over and in upon itself. I went on quite an adventure following that experience, in which I very quickly dropped out of school in the pursuit of an actual education. I embraced the space I'd only ever before heard described as the terrible illness of schizophrenia. Hearing voices and talking to things that weren't there, when in fact those things became my best friends and greatest guides through the times, steeping in an ever-strengthening tea of peculiarity. I let go of who I thought I and the world was, so I could discover it, uncover it beyond the definition of things and ways of operation so oppressively imposed upon children amidst our societal indoctrination. I blew with the wind, wandering in the stories of its whisperings. This time was beautiful, but as life lives, it came with its own pain. I was ever submerging in a universe of creation unbound by rule, though I was continually in motion, traveling with the muse as she flew. The weight of having so much to say but no words to speak weighed so heavily upon me. Alongside the feeling that what I see and how I breathe doesn't align with this reality. I'd sold away this world in trade for her much hotter, younger, far more bombastier sister, so free from the confines of form and rigidity in clothing. And though she was fucking fine, we didn't have the same depth and roots of conversation as I did with the older sister. There was a trade, and in the first paradigm of this trade, I left this world to be with Dream, and so self-imposed an incubatory isolation, alienation from conversation with others who walked this earth. For a long time, I wanted to share the world I saw, sang, and spoke to, but when the words came out, they were tied in knots of a cryptic language that I could see but would be wholly dissonating and entirely unapproachable to others. I wanted to develop my craftsmanship in creation because I knew through creating I could share it, but I was so enamored by magic in every medium, I was the mover of many and master of none. I traveled for a long time, living for many months in my car, spaceship, a small blue Volkswagen hatchback, who goes by the name Jacques Cousteau, the deep-sea explorer. He's a fine midnight black stallion Pegasus, and we traveled with the accompaniment of Bourgeoisie, aka the Director, a drunken teddy bear in a Christmas scarf and gloves we'd found on the side of the road in the foothills of the Sierras. I set off on this nomadic traveling chapter, foreplaying with the awareness that miracle is a frequency, a feeling, a state of being we may choose to embody. And though our intention was to touch it every day, we fell away from it, getting caught, flying ourselves into knots, writing around a labyrinth of mythology where no stories were ever complete. No songs were fastened to form, and all writings lived in a chaotic disarray, a shipwreck in shards of fragmented stories consuming the memory of my computer. The magic had tied itself into a knot so dense it became the very prison from which we couldn't breathe, its own oppressive society. And the only way to free ourselves was to throw all the ways we'd come to learn about it away, to re-engage the zero state, beginner's mind, trying something entirely new. Trying something new isn't the hard part. The hard part is its predecessor, letting what was go. Creating the space of fertile soil, a white open canvas for nature to breathe it to life. How she does so effortlessly without questioning, nature unfolds as a jungle rose, and growth reclaims the decay of a fallen city. First, there was nothing. And then something flooded into frame in the form of music. A friend of mine invited me to stay with him for free in his garage, as I had no money. He just happened to be a master mage of music production. And so I hobbled in, skin-sung, leather-worn from the weather of forever traveling, finally arriving to a space to set down my things, take my shoes off, drink some water, and rest my feet. I was just a boy who knew nothing, sitting down with my father, who, for whatever reasoning then unknown to me, praised worship to a computer screen, sculpting sound and cosmic layerings. I didn't know how or why he did what he did, so I simply did what I saw, filling the screen with sounds of illiteracy, sentence fragments of a language I didn't know I knew, not knowing what to do, doing something, and so learning that indeed I could read in this language would supersede any other before known to me. Within these teachings, here passed the perceptual code and key, which, without it, the entire quest of the nomadic journey months before had plundered, crumbling an entire tower from one measly rotted pillar. The idea, which is true currency, though simple, held resonations so profound, layering the fundamental ground for an entirely new wave of creative civilization to birth, layering high from ground a shrine, a city, a populating galaxy within this virtual and paralleling universe. The key? To arrive to tie the bow. Finish the project, complete the story, do one, then move on to the next. So simple indeed, but the way this line has changed my process to a scale immeasurable in profundity. So simple indeed, but this line has changed my process to a scale immeasurable in profundity. It has allowed water to cycle rather than be stuck upon the other side, imprisoning potential so incomplete and unfulfilled. The implementation of this process came first through the music, simply tying the bow upon a single track, a single day's odyssey into the deep, and setting it aside in a folder collecting the doings, each piece becoming a stepping stone to the next. I became an output generator, cultivating completions from none to few to many, where practice is a process of perfection, takes time, and I have infinity. This process allows the dream cloud to condense into rain, water I can feel soaking into my skin. I cast back, up, and away, arrayed in the kiss of sun. Why? One, simply because it's beautiful. Two, so the beauty may be shared as blood-nourishing hive our human body. And three, because I recognize myself as infinity, divinity composing this dream, and so I choose to do so ever more lucidly, where this magic is real, as it lives giving life to earth, making love to the soul as scripture and universe who sings scene by scene, narrating the story of how I come to be. This song is the dance I set my soul free. And so I've been singing, celebrating the new ways it continually arrives to greet me in mystery's majesty, the joy of the unseen being seen, and the potential embedded within me, embodied as today's becoming. The 100-day journey I alluded to in the beginning refers to a challenge I set out for myself, to do one self-portrait of any medium every day for 100 days, and then to create a spaceship where all these fragments of me may coalesce into one digital reflection, the mage's matrix. Here, eternity is making love to the creations of time, compounding upon themselves within one timeline, informing and animating all that is to follow. This space is a new era voodoo doll, an assimilative reality composing this body into another. It is the space I speak my dreams and weave them into being. Embody, here embody, I hear, embody. Jason, I carry your bracelet with me everywhere that I go. I feel your magic, your presence, your heart within it and within me so profoundly. I've been excited to write to you, and not knowing what to say, I write something, sharing my journey as we all walk each other home. Prison is a fine place to incubate, though I know when you choose to set yourself free, you are and will be. I'm casting my dream to see you here, joining us as a free man upon the other side. You've done the work, brother. You deserve it. You need no longer be enslaved to the chains of your predecessor. Come alive, dream brother. There are many people here to love, and who love you, and there's work to be done when you choose to arrive. May the Jedi be with you. Love, Jay.